Hello and welcome to Divorcing Dilemmas, where every month I interview a professional about different issues that affect certainly people going through a divorce and sometimes even people who aren't. So today I have Dave Jamieson from Rainbow Mortgage. So welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks, Amanda. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming. And so what we're going to be talking about today is an issue I see really commonly in divorce. So one party wants to keep the house, the other party is okay with that. But the party keeping the house can't refinance the mortgage and take the other party's name off it, at least not for a couple of years, which the other party maybe doesn't even mind that much. They trust them to make the payments, but they're concerned because they want to be able to go and buy a new place. So Dave, can you talk a little bit about, is that possible to do, or do we need to force them to sell the house?
Right. Well, that's a great question, Amanda, and it does come up quite a bit. And the technical answer is they do not have to be removed from that other mortgage as long as the debt has been assigned to the party who's staying in the house. They can go out and purchase a new home, and we don't have to include that debt in the debt-to-income ratio for the person who's not staying in the house, so the person who's buying a house. The caveat to that is not all lenders follow that rule. So what I found is that a lot of banks in the area will tell people, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't qualify because you're on that mortgage," and then people get discouraged and they don't even pursue it anymore. But that's just an internal guideline that those banks have for that particular rule.
Okay, so some lenders have higher requirements than they need to have, but there are a lot of lenders out there who are willing to lend.
Exactly. Yep.
Do you recommend then that people shop around, or what's the best way then to find a lender that is willing to help them?
Well, the best way is to just call me, of course.
Obviously.
Obviously, that's the best way. But yeah, if they get the wrong answer up front, then they definitely would shop around and find a lender that's actually following the guidelines, because it is a guideline. It's clearly spelled out that we don't have to count that debt against the person who's not buying. Now, like you and I talked before, the thing that the people do have to worry about is just because that debt is assigned to the party staying in the house, and the fact that we don't have to count it in the debt-to-income ratio, it still shows up on the credit report, and it doesn't get removed. So if that other party doesn't pay for whatever reason, that is going to affect the credit score.
Right, and frequently we do write in protections about that, so that if they stop paying, there's some sort of recourse. But one of their biggest concerns is frequently, well, in the meantime, I want my own house too, or condo or townhouse or whatever. And so that's something that you can help people with too, is finding a lender who's willing to lend to them, even if they have this mortgage under their name.
Exactly.
All right, perfect. Now, is there anything, and I know, and for the viewers, Dave is actually works a lot with people going through a divorce, and is willing to generally review language in divorce decrees to make sure everything is kosher, so that we don't, sometimes you just have 5 words wrong that suddenly the lenders don't want to do stuff. So, but is there any general recommendations you have for what sort of language to make sure it's assigned properly?
Yeah. So if you're doing like in your conclusions of law, you just want to make sure that it's clearly spelled out in your liability section that the home mortgage is going to be 100% the responsibility of the person who's staying in it, and they're held harmless. That's really the most important language for that particular part of the divorce decree, is that you just don't want to leave any ambiguity in there. It just has to be very, very clear that spouse A is keeping the house and they're keeping the debt, and it's not going to be any party B's responsibility.
Perfect. And that hold harmless language that Dave was talking about, if you have an attorney, they routinely add that in. But if for whatever reason you do not have an attorney, do make sure you have that sort of language, and possibly have somebody, either Dave or an attorney, review it just to make sure that you're safe, because you'd hate to have almost everything correct and then not be able to get the mortgage that you think you're supposed to be able to get. Any other tips for dealing with that situation, Dave?
That's probably the biggest thing, is just making sure that language is correct. And like you said, making sure that there is language where the people are actually, the person who's not in the house is being made, or has communication, knowing that payment's being made on a regular basis.
Right, that's a good point. Sometimes it makes sense for that person to have access, if there's an online account still, so that they can still see that, okay, they can just check and make sure. Because frequently, otherwise, if by the time they find out, it may be, 90 days late already or something like that, at which point there's still stuff you can do, but your credit's gotten damaged quite a bit by that point.
Exactly. So. Yeah, that happened to a client of mine where he was like, yeah, that mortgage is my wife's responsibility. And when I pulled the credit, they were already in foreclosure.
Oof. Yeah, not good. Yeah. So yeah, trying to, hopefully they do what they said they're going to do, but obviously life happens sometimes. So trying to make sure if you're in that situation that you have a way to monitor that is helpful, just to make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. So Dave, thanks so much for being with us today. And for those of you watching this, if you have any more questions about mortgage, either this specific topic or in general, please contact Dave. He's great with mortgages. Depending on what platform you are watching this on, his contact information is either down below or to one of the sides. So please reach out to Dave if you have any more questions about that. So thanks, Dave.
Well, thanks for having me, Amanda.
Yeah.